So we'll see how much of that we have.
What are you gonna do?
All right, tell me about college.
Well, I applied to two schools, Cal and Caltech. Glad I didn't get into Caltech. Went to Cal with no place to live. My dad had been a fraternity man, and Mom was in sorority at Washington State, and they said it's a good thing to do. So I stayed at Hotel Durant, went through Rush, found a little house on the north side that was mostly small town guys, and very happy with that decision. Still have some good friends, and that was 1960, so that's 55 years ago.
What fraternity?
Alpha Chi Rho, which is relatively big in the east, but there's we were the only chapter west of the Mississippi, and they took away our charter when they admitted women some years after I left. I got into leadership at the fraternity house and enjoyed that. I played 9 intramural sports for the house, most of which I was no good at, but we needed someone to make up a team. Had a 13-point game in basketball when we played the short Jewish fraternity. My turnaround jumper was hot. Took an anthropology class just to fill something in when I was trying to get back in the good graces of the university, and I enjoyed it very much, so I majored in anthropology and enjoyed many of those classes. Enjoyed some geography classes, speech, history, political science. Did not enjoy linguistics.
Or computers.
Well,
So I mean,
Business Administration 1B, the guy, prof came in and said, "Great news, we get to use the computer in the basement of somewhere." And I thought, that's just a fad, I'm not going to do that. And so I took a F from the class.
now you lived through some of, the history events that I learned about in school. I mean, like you lived through that. Where were you when you heard JFK had been shot?
I think I had just come back to the house for lunch, and as I recall, that might not be right. And there's a TV in the main room, and someone had turned it on, and they were saying the president was shot. That was a shock. He had come and spoken at Cal just the year before.
How about Martin Luther King being assassinated? Do you remember that event?
I absolutely do. Your mom and I were living in Lafayette. We just got married, and we were at a hamburger joint on main drag of Lafayette and heard that. And then we had just moved to Dunsmuir June 1st, and a few days later I think we were watching the news and saw Bobby Kennedy get shot.
Yeah.
That was a rough year.
It was 1968, right? RFK and MLK and the Tet Offensive. I mean, so you were around obviously during the Vietnam War. What was that like?
So I did not go to Vietnam. Friends of mine did, including the friend who bought our tickets to the football game today. Went to Vietnam. I was a little out of the mainstream in Dunsmuir because I wore a little peace button with the symbol on it. Small towns in Northern California were pretty hawkish in those days. And there was a lot of anti-hippie stuff, signs, hippies not allowed, and dumb things like that in some of the stores. And I was on a commission to fight that. When I was still in law school, there was a fellow living in the same place I was who was very anti-war and knew and talked about the fact that we were sending more soldiers over there. And I kind of didn't believe him at that time. I was a Republican. And I wasn't at all for war, but I didn't want to believe some of the things he told me. Should have. Dunsmuir was not real affected by the war.
Yeah. And how about just the segregation going from a pretty segregated country to one that is much less so? I mean, what was your experience? Did you have an experience with segregation? I mean, you were in California, which didn't have as much of that as other places.
I remember one black kid in elementary school, none in high school,
Yeah.
not a lot at Cal.
Yeah.
I was liberal on that subject, but had never really lived with it. So
Yeah.
it was pretty easy to be tolerant when wasn't anybody to be tolerant about.
Yeah. It's actually more, I think, common for people to be intolerant when there's no one to be tolerant of.
Well, there's a lot of that.
Yeah. So, how did you pick Dunsmuir? How did you pick Dunsmuir? I mean, I know the story, but this is for posterity.
We put a map on the wall in our apartment in Lafayette and had a line basically from about Willits north and I-5 west, so the northwest corner of the state, and I wrote to most of the law offices in that northwest corner of the state and sent my qualifications. 63rd percent of my class at law school, I think. And I only got really 2 or 3 offices that wanted, well, I interviewed with more than that, but lawyer from Weed and a lawyer from Dunsmuir invited me up to talk, and they each offered me a job. And Howard Jones and Dunsmuir offered $400 a month, which I think was more than Bill Heidewald offered me to open an office in McLeod. And I signed on. And the reason I contacted those ones in the northwest corner of the state was because there's steelhead there. And I knew that I wanted to do a lot of fishing and a lot of steelhead fishing.
Yeah.
And it worked out.
Do you remember my first steelhead?
I am not sure that I remember the first. I definitely remember the one that you lost because I didn't make sure that your drag was loose enough, and I think it was a scan bar on the Klamath.
It's cold.
You hooked a pretty good sized steelhead and it broke the line, or drag was too tight.
Yeah, I remember that. Do you remember my first summer steelhead? I remember.
I do. At Whistler's Bend Campground on the North Umpqua River.
Yeah.
And when we had arrived on Friday with our tent trailer, the main campground was full, but they had an overflow back about a 1/10 of a mile. So we set the tent trailer up just on the grass there, and we were down out from the main campground, and you caught about a 6-7 pound summer steelhead, and you grabbed it and you ran up all the way to the tent trailer to show your mother.
I did. I remember that. I had pictures of me with that fish somewhere. Somewhere, I remember that.
That was neat.
Yeah.
I never caught one there.
There had been a bunch of trout released or something like that, and there were
Yeah, there were a
good
lot of
trout.
nice 12-inch rainbow planters in there, and they were kind of fun, but then
Yeah.
you hooked the big one.
Yeah, that was pretty exceptional. What was tell me about the first time that you went to the Babine?
That was 1967. Dad had taken me to the Kispiox in 60. And in 67, I graduated from law school. He paid for me to, he had driven up, paid for me to fly up. We fished Kispiox briefly. I caught a 22-pound steelhead there on a spinning glow with a spinning rod. And then we had 5 days booked on the Babine, and it was magic. And Dad got along real well with Einar Madsen, the Danish guy who owned it. And I think I caught like 13 or something in the 5 days, steelhead. Not huge, but up to about 18 pounds. You know, on his birthday, September 29th, 1967, Dad lost his last crocodile lure, asked if I had any left, and I loaned him one, and he hooked a big fish. And I was watching him, and I made a cast and was watching Dad. I figured it must be time to reel in, but my line was still pointed out straight ahead. So I tightened up and there was a fish on. I landed a 12-pound hen steelhead while Dad was still wrestling with the big one. And Einar came by and we jumped in his boat and floated about a half-mile down and landed the fish, which we kept and froze and took to Jonas Brothers Taxidermy in Seattle. And it hung in my dad's house in Tehama and Kingston, Washington. And Sharon wouldn't let me put it in our house. My dad died, so it's now hanging in the Ted Fay Fly Shop in Dunsmuir. And its name is Good Grief.
What? I think I know the answer to this, but what is the biggest fish you've ever caught? Game fish.
I'm not sure that I ever caught a bigger game fish. I may have landed some half beat up salmon that were bigger than 25 pounds, but the 25-pound steelhead I caught on a fly in 2009 from the Babine may be the biggest fish I ever caught.
I would think so. That's one I was thinking of.
I think of that one every once in a while.
And you fished on the Klamath for years and years and years and years. How many steelhead have you? I mean, you have the tally. I mean, how many steelhead have you caught out of the tree or out of the Klamath?
Out of the Klamath, I've caught in the range of 1,800.
Oh my God.
That includes half pounders, which are
Yeah.
from 11 to 16 inches, fish that go to hit the salt water and only spend a few months and then come back.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, in 1959 I caught 190 of them.
Oh my God.
And a couple other years I had 100.
It's crazy.
This year was very slow.
Yeah.
2.
All right. Before this thing turns off again.